inky black. The veins in his arms and legs were weak and thin. The only good vein left was in his penis, so that's where they attached most of the tubes. Della thought that was funny and had smiled smugly when the doctor shared that piece of information with her. Dozens of tubes ran in, out, and through every part of his body like translucent tentacles, and I half expected them to stretch out and enwrap me in their plastic grip. Most of his teeth were gone, and the ones that remained were the color of butter, buried in tobacco-browned gums. Never a big man, his small frame had withered so that his skin draped on his body instead of looking tailored to fit. I watched him, and to my surprise my heart pulled in my chest as I remembered a Saturday a few years earlier when we still owned the house. The rain and wind were pounding at the windows, ripping away the petals of the tulips that filled the garden and tearing at the black phone lines hanging above the two-family homes that lined the neighborhood. It was Saturday, and no matter the rain and the gray of the day, the sheets needed changing and the laundry needed to be done. Della's hands were hurting. The damp weather was aggravating her arthritis. Her fingers refused to bend, and her knee swelled and bulged through her pants leg. I told her not to worry. I would change the linens on her bed and wash her clothes. "Leave my underwear alone," she said as she half walked, half limped her way to the kitchen. "I'll wash those tomorrow when I'm feeling better." I just smiled and shook my head and then began stripping the sheets from the bed. I picked up Della's pillow first, removed its case, and then went for high-lows, but I dropped it back down to the bed just as quickly as I had snatched it up. I stood staring at it for some time, trying to distinguish what I thought were tiny blooming roses camouflaged among the green-stemmed daffodils that sprinkled the mauve canvas of the pillowcase. I scratched my head in confusion and checked Della's pillowcase. No blooming roses there. I looked at the matching top sheet and bed ruffle. Again, no blooming roses. My heart began to race, and I could feel panic taking hold of me like a vice grip. The air became thin, and all at once I knew that the crimson rose-shaped figures were not roses at all, but splatterings of blood. That dried sanguine fluid dragged me toward a knowledge I had been sidestepping for some time. 2, maybe 3 years at least. I had managed to ignore High-Low's bloated stomach and swollen face, disregarding the stench that seeped from his pores and hung thick in the air like smoke and settled deep into the upholstery. I chose instead to smile away the smell and his physical appearance rather than offer explanation when a visitor raised his or her eyebrows in surprise. He was ill. More than ill at that point. My Grandma Mabel said he was wiping his feet on death's doormat. I collected myself best I could and gathered the soiled linens and carried them down to the basement. He was there. He was always there, sitting in his recliner in front of the television, surrounded by old lamps, boxes that held long-forgotten items, and dusty, rusting gym equipment that hadn't helped a body in years. The washing machine was to his left, and he rarely bothered to acknowledge anyone who came to use it. He would just lean forward, remote in hand, and increase the already ear-splitting volume of the television. But for some reason on that windy, rainy Saturday he turned and looked at me, and I forgot I hated him and smiled. He didn't return my happy face with his own, but gave me a queer sort of look before turning his attention back to the television. I looked at his balding head and the tiny sores that had begun to fester there, and I pitied him. A pity so deep and blue welled up within me like the sea, misting my eyes and blurring the image of the tiny blooming roses on the mauve pillowcase just before I dropped it into the soapy water of the washing machine. He moved a bit. His head turned left, then right, and he squeezed his eyes so tight.